Welcome to episode 62 of the Balancing Act podcast. I'm Dan Strafford. Today we're kicking off our new mini-series entitled The Skill of Business Acumen. In this series, we're going to explore the importance of developing the key future-facing skill of business acumen with individuals and teams. Andy, as always, great to see you. How are you doing today, my friend?
It's doing just fantastic. We're deep into fall here, and I like fall. You know, you don't have that oppressive heat and humidity that we get in the upper Midwest.
Yeah, I reflect the sun, so summer is not my best time of the year. Fall, hoodie, sweatshirt, and shorts is my favorite outfit for the fall. So give me like 40s in the morning and 65 in the afternoon, and I'm a happy man. Give me a fire pit at night. Cider donuts are huge up here in Massachusetts, so I am good to go, and there are plenty of them happening this fall, so I'm very excited about it.
Absolutely.
Andy, if we dive in, we talked, obviously, financial acumen. The Balancing Act has the 4 key future-facing skills. Hopefully everyone did listen to the last mini-series. If they haven't, go back and listen. But what are those 4 key skills that you list out in the Balancing Act book?
Well, skill 1 is our human skill set, and I spend a lot of the book, Balancing Act, talking about various human skills. So as I said in our setup for the Financial Acumen series, I cheat just a little bit by calling it a human skills, and it is a whole set of skills: communication, empathy, vulnerability, mental agility, etc., in that human skill set. So that's the majority of the book. That's skill number 1. Financial acumen, we've already talked about that 5 episodes worth, and we've got the perspectives of a number of leaders in both business and in the financial community on that topic. Business acumen, this series is all about the what the business looks like, and then later this fall and into the winter months, we're going to be talking about data and digital literacy and the importance of knowing how to code, knowing where the mountains of data that our businesses are producing every single day. What do we do with that? Why is it important to know where all of that goes? And and how can we both improve personally and professionally by understanding the digital world better?
So if we do the deeper dive, or the awful phrase I've heard many times, a double click on business acumen, how would you define that phrase for someone unaware, a layperson, and somebody who obviously then would need to build their own business acumen?
Yeah, business acumen is the process of understanding how a business functions. So if you work in the marketing department, having business acumen is the ability, the willingness and ability to know the basics of what's happening over in finance, and the basics of what's happening in production, and the basics of what's happening in technology, and how work flows within those other parts of the organization that you're not directly working with, but you interact with on a day-to-day basis. In my forthcoming book, The Balanced Business, I talk a lot about flow. So this concept of business acumen is essential in creating smooth handoffs of work product along what technically is termed the value stream within a business, that you as an employee are adding value along the value stream. Spoiler alert, that's why you get paid. You get paid.
So true.
You get paid because you are adding value along a value stream. You are not getting paid for your glowing personality at the water cooler and all the great stories that you tell about what your kids did. That helps maybe a little bit with culture, of course. That's cool, but we all get paid because we add value. And if our job is to add value along the value stream, the only way we can do that really effectively is to understand how our work and our outputs impact the team downstream that is taking our outputs as inputs into their process, so that they can add value along the value stream, et cetera. If you're only focused on what you are doing, and that's all that matters, you cannot, almost by definition, add the maximum amount of value that you can add. You're almost by definition adding less value if you don't understand both where your inputs are coming from and how they were derived and where your outputs are going. Right. So that's business acumen.
That's across any business, right? It's not just, software development. It's not just, it's the idea of you can't live in a world where every team is siloed and you're just dumping stuff over the fence and hoping things are getting to where they need to go, right? So I think that makes a ton of sense, and just a general understanding of how that flow works, how things are pieced together, makes so much sense as a need. But where does that start? Where should we point to as a place where this understanding and this learning, this education should really begin? Yeah.
So in our last kickoff, we talked about the underlying skills that are necessary for financial acumen. And one of those, the most important one, is the understanding the basics of mathematics. And that starts in our homes at a very early age. And it also starts in our primary schools. So very similarly for business acumen, this all starts in our primary and secondary schools. In the third grade or the second grade, learning how to coexist on a team with other students, and playing nicely, or nice isn't a great way to put it. Being kind to others and promoting teamwork. Those are some of the fundamental skills for business acumen. Situational awareness is another one. Being aware of what's around you, and that all starts in our homes, in our primary schools, and in our secondary schools. And before we move off where this skill needs to start, it is growing experiential opportunities, especially in middle school and high school, where we're giving hands-on opportunities to students to learn about how a business or institution functions. Business training should be mandatory especially in middle school and high school, because business training is the same training as institutional training, is very similar to working in a governmental setting. It's all about understanding goals. It's all about understanding how workflow happens within an institution, how to get along with others, how to be kind, what is a workplace culture? Why do they exist, and how can they be developed, and how can they go wildly wrong? Right. These are lessons that we need to impart on students, and we're so afraid right now to give students any kind of bad news, right? That or paint the reality of the world that we live in at an earlier age. And this is business acumen training within middle schools and high schools is a very gentle way of helping students understand that throughout your entire lifetime, you're going to be dealing with that bully. You're going to be dealing with that genius jerk. And how do you navigate through situations like that? So human skill training that we've talked about, it's all part and parcel this concept of business acumen and setting our students up, our graduates up for success in the world of work.
What if I'm the bully and the genius jerk? No, I'm kidding. The interesting there, and again, in my brain, the best teachers do this naturally, right? Yeah. The best teachers are incorporating these sort of life lessons or growth lessons with the literature, with the mathematics, with the art class, with those things. And it's that middling to lower. We talked about the movable middle what feels like years ago at this point, but those who need the little bit more direction and a little bit more maybe mandatory processes of making sure students are picking up that these are foundational lessons, that these are things that you're going to use in ways, teamwork and process flow and how work gets done. I think is just we've talked about the where that happens. We're going to take a quick break and we're going to come back and talk about the why it needs to happen after this.
Thanks for listening to the Balancing Act podcast. I'm Andrew Temte. In my book, Balancing Act, Teach, Coach, Mentor, Inspire, I explore the characteristics required of leaders who must find balance between strength and vulnerability, confidence and selflessness, passion and measure, and leadership and followership. Balancing Act is available today at Amazon.com.
We are back, Andy. We talked where it starts, where the foundation is laid. What's the why behind the importance of this skill?
Yeah, so business acumen is an awakening tool. We don't talk a lot about politics, but I just love this whole hullabaloo around the concept of woke, right?
Right.
Yeah, I want to be awake. I want to know what's going on around me. I want to understand how I impact others, how my actions impact others. I want to understand other cultures. I want to understand how the what, why, and how and where of where my coworkers came from and why they might be thinking the way that they are. Understanding how a business functions, and I know I'm talking about human skill and I'm conflating business acumen and human skill, but it's almost impossible to not talk about them together in the same breath. The unfortunate thing, Dan, is that as a leader with well over 30 years of experience of working with teams and individuals, both large and small, I see so many people with the blinders on and little to no willingness to learn about what happens in other areas of the business. Right. You cannot help if you don't know what's going on somewhere else. And the best employees, if you want to be known as that employee that's going above and beyond, but still, I wrote an article about quiet quitting a couple of months ago, right? And this concept of I'm going to go to work, I'm going to do my job, as described in my job description, and I'm going to go home and I'm going to enjoy my life. I'm going to apply my passion maybe to a hobby or something else. Mm-hmm. First of all, quiet quitting shouldn't even be a term, because
Yes.
we're demeaning the concept of quote unquote just doing a job, which should be perfectly acceptable. Right. And you're talking about 50% of the employment population. But even if you're in that quote unquote unengaged category, where you're coming in during business hours, you're doing your job well, even in that setting, you cannot simply have the blinders on, because as we talked about at the top of the show, this whole value stream concept and knowing how your outputs influence the inputs of another team. If you're doing the work as it's described in your job description, you have to know where your outputs are going, and you can still be punching the clock and doing and coming to work and being quote unquote a quiet quitter, and still want to help and want to make a significant impact on the business within the hours that are there. And leaders are going to see that, and you're going to be rewarded for that in the world of work.
100% on the whole quiet. We've talked about it separately, but the whole quiet quitting thing, I'm glad it died as quickly as it arrived in a lot of ways. I know it lingered longer than I think some wanted, but it's such a strange term that I feel like LinkedIn made up. Like, I feel like it was just for LinkedIn to drive traffic. But if we're thinking about learning and we're thinking about building this acumen, clearly we've talked about middle school, high school, and that process. What advice do you have for the academic community to help improve business acumen in graduates and those joining the workforce?
Yeah, well, much like my answer to this in the Financial Acumen mini-series, it's about creating those experiential opportunities for everyone that is in the student body on your campus, both virtually and literally. And creating educational pathways that do not allow for an individual to graduate with any degree within your institution, that allows an individual to simply do book learning and multiple choice examinations and then miraculously leave with a degree from your institution and enter the world of work and not have that experience, a strong set of experiences on how to learn about an organization, the inner workings of an organization. And you know what? One of the easiest ways that you can do that as an academic institution is teach people how an academic institution actually functions.
Yeah.
Be honest about the dysfunction that is occurring within your academic community. Celebrate the things that are working well, and be that leader. So if you're the chancellor, if you're the president, lead by example. Lead from the top. Do some town halls, for your entire student population, and show them why it's so incredibly important for them to get this experience, whether it's through a paid internship, where there's deep connection between the business community and the academic institution, projects, clubs, student groups, get involved. And again, that culture comes from the top. Nobody should be able to just skate through, get awarded a degree from an educational institution without having an idea of how an institution or a business functions.
And it to your point, culture matters so much there. And that's at an academic institution, at a business. Of thinking back, I wasn't it wasn't mandatory for me, but I worked at the TV and radio stations, and I, wrote for the school newspaper, and I was in a couple of clubs, and it was, again, access, having those things available to people, available to students, I think is so important, especially as a lot of institutions are a little bit under fire for cost and the variety of other access point problems. I think that is such an important part. I love Northeastern University, which is up here in Massachusetts. Their co-op program is just so well built to get students out into the real world, to get them experiencing business, culture, work in a variety of different ways. We talked academics, so now I'm already working. I need to learn, I need to grow while I'm working. How do business leaders help to improve business acumen in their companies? Yeah.
So very similarly to my answer in the Financial Acumen series, that cultural shift comes from the top, and leaders are routinely communicating with the organization through town halls or other major communication events, and use those as experiential teaching tools. And the way that you can do that as a leader, first and foremost, shine a bright light on who the customer actually is.
Yep.
And paint a very, very vivid picture for everybody about how their work impacts the customer. Because once you make that real, this whole concept of a value stream that we were talking about before, where a value stream starts with idea and then it's finished product or service. Well, where does that finished product or service go? It just doesn't miraculously disappear. Somebody finds value in that, and they're willing to pay for it. And that, my friends, is your customer. And so the first thing to do is to make those connections visceral, very real, tangible for everybody in the company. And when I say everybody, I mean everybody. I'm talking about the person in accounting who's working accounts receivables. Yep. That individual may think they don't have a direct connection to the customer, because they're, working every day on, some process that maybe drudgery to them, possibly, but, help them find the connection to the customer, because that connection is absolutely there and it's absolutely real. The second thing that I'll say, I'll only give you two things here. The second is to share goals. And it is the sharing of goals. So if I have Department A and Department B, and information and product and service transitions between those two departments along the value stream, you know what I've seen in business many times? I've seen the leaders of those departments, their egos get in the way, and they're very reticent to share their own team's goals and their own team's metrics. And, heaven forbid that we would actually share what's going on. Make that all transparent. Your goal as a leader and the senior leadership team, one of them should be transparency and getting everybody to understand how the value stream functions and how product and service moves along that, and how value is added at each step along the way, ultimately to where the customer gets involved and actually pays for the good or service, and hopefully provides feedback on how to get better. So, you in our previous time together on the Financial Acumen, you talked about understanding the why. Mm-hmm. So explain the why. Share the goals, be transparent, make your town halls experiential teaching tools, and make that connection to the customer.
It's it seems easy when you say it, but there is a lot of thinking like an educator, right? Thinking like the teachers and thinking like the professors. So we talked about what academics can do, but as a business leader, understanding, I hope this isn't news to anyone, but understanding your employees don't have the same point of view as you. They don't have the same background or education or understanding of what you're talking about. And so I don't know if we've ever talked about it, but something I'd love to put in people's eye line is a series from Wired.com, which I don't know the exact title, but it's explaining something 5 different ways. So it starts with an elementary school student, then it builds to a high school student, college student, a new professional, and a expert in the field. And so one of them is quantum computing. And so this woman who's expert in the field has to explain it to a 9-year-old.
Yeah.
And so you see how she is able to break it down and explain it in a very simple way and then build it up. Not to say your employees are 9-year-olds, but their understanding of something is not likely to be at your level. So take the time to educate and to bring everyone along for the ride. Bring everybody to where you are. I think it's such an important thing in this, Andy. And I think we talked about in the financial acumen, access. You hit on it here. Share the goals, share the information, share the whys, show how things connect, show how the workflow happens, how the value stream happens, and get people on board. Get the pride in it, get the understanding of it to really want to push forward. And if they're quiet quitters, let them do their job in 40 hours. Let them do what they're doing and keep pushing forward. I will never mention that phrase again. But Andy, any final comments? I think we covered a lot of ground in a short time period here, building on the financial acumen episode as well. Any further thoughts we need to share before we close out?
We talked about the kind of implicit bullying that occurs in the business world when you make somebody feel bad through your comments of having that 5th grade understanding of what's happening in that department. Yeah, okay, if you got a 5th grade understanding of what's happening in that department, let's raise it to the high school level now, and let's make that approachable and let's make it fun. But let's not make somebody feel bad or pick on somebody for not having that. Is there anything that we missed from your perspective today, Dan?
I think we just touched on, I think you just actually hit on one that sparks a little bit of just access matters so much to me. And that's across the board on a variety of different reasoning for access, but assume everyone has their best intentions, assume people want to learn more. And then to your point, make it accessible. If you can make it fun, great, but let them experience it. Don't talk at them. Let people, like you talked about, let people experience things, get their hands dirty, whatever phrase you want to use. I just think is so important in everything you've been talking about in your book and across this podcast series of we're trying to grow everyone. And it's not a one-person race. It's not a one-team race. It's growing the business. It's growing individuals to better contribute. So I think that's a real key takeaway of understanding business and understanding the whys. We hit on so much. But you can find Andy at andrewtemte.com. You find him on LinkedIn. Saturday Morning News surprisingly comes out on Saturdays. This podcast is available across all your podcasting apps. If it's not on your favorite, just let us know. We'll get it there. And of course, we want you to subscribe, like, and share. Share on LinkedIn, share on Twitter, share on Facebook, wherever you are on social media. Tag Andy. Feel free to tag me as well. Pretty straightforward to find me. But hope everyone's enjoying. If you have topics or specific questions, don't hesitate to reach out as well, because this is an organic living podcast, and it will continue to hit on topics that matter in the business world as we continue to move forward. For Dr. Andrew Temte, Dan Strafford saying, have a enjoyable day, and we'll see you next time right here on The Balancing Act.